It's great to be here and great to see you all. I just returned from Rome, where Father Jeff still is. I left him behind, where I had the opportunity to lead the diocese pilgrimage for this year of mercy. And it was a wonderful experience. Every day, 80 degrees, sunny. Nice work if you can get it, right? But I can tell you, it's not a friendly city if you have a handicap. Walking around those cobblestones, and I feel so bad sometimes because everybody has to slow up for me. They used to have to catch up to me. Now it's the other way around. Tonight you're going to see a tape. And it's a tape for this Faith to Move Mountains initiative. And I made this tape the day after I returned to my residence, having had my leg amputated. And I sat in a wheelchair in my house, and the cameras were rolling. The cameraman is right there. He took those pictures then. And I shared on this tape, as you'll see tonight, my hopes for the diocese. And this first major fundraising campaign since 1992, almost a quarter of a century, has passed. Now, in my surgery and rehab, I had my own personal mountain to move. A massive infection that almost cost me my life. And the doctors told me when I entered the hospital, Bishop, you know you're not going to make it, don't you? And I said, well, it's been a good life. I put myself in the hands of the Lord and our Blessed Mother, and then I went to sleep. And when I woke up the next day, I said, I'm going to make it. And so I'm happy that I did. But I faced that mountain in my life with faith. I faced it with faith in the doctors, of course, that they knew what they were doing and that they were going to be able to help me. I faced that mountain with faith in my priests, who were so supportive in those days, and with all the parishioners who prayed for me. I want to tell you, in my dining room at home, I had 10,000 cards from people in this diocese, and it was really very humbling for me. But most of all, I faced it with faith in my God and in the Lord. Because it was He who said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, and a mustard seed, I don't know if you've ever seen one, it's tiny, tiny, tiny seed. If you have faith that size, you will be able to say to that mountain, move, and it will move. Nothing is impossible with God. What an awesome assurance that is, isn't it? For all of us who continue to hear those words 2,000 years later. There is a lot of faith out there in our diocese, and it's 107 parishes. By now, after 6 years, although people still call me the new bishop, by now I have been everywhere in all of those parishes. And I've seen and felt the faith of our great people. But there are still plenty of mountains to move as well. Our faith in the diocese and in our parishes is much bigger than a mustard seed, I can tell you that. And so too is our ability to move the mountains that we face. This is our church. This is our home. And we are bracing ourselves, getting ourselves ready for the future. And the future church is going to look a lot different than the church some of us grew up with in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Thank God the 70s were... I always like to say the 80s were the best. That's when I was ordained. We can move forward. I believe that. And it will take much prayer, beaucoup prayer, a lot of prayer. And it will take determination. We've got to be determined and convinced that we can move forward. And it will take sacrifice and generosity on the part of people, our people. We Catholics have all of that. We have it all. We just simply have to decide that this campaign is worth the effort, is worth it. Now, on Sunday mornings, I, believe it or not, I sit and watch the evangelists of other religions on TV. I don't know if you've ever seen any of these preachers, and I'm checking out the competition, really is what I'm doing. But I see mega churches with tens of thousands of people sitting there. You can't even see the preacher, he's so tiny up on the stage, but they're there. They're there with their Bibles in their hands. They're there with their amens and their alleluias. They sit there in rapt attention, listening to these ministers preach. They're eloquent. They're very knowledgeable about the Bible, and they can quote it chapter and verse. I'm a bishop, I can't do that. But they can quote it chapter and verse, and I admire them. When they're up there, they've got a lot of charisma, and they can turn a sermon into virtually unlimited support. It's amazing to me. But I always ask myself, after they walk off the stage, what do they do the rest of the week? Catholics do not have mega churches, at least not in our diocese. Probably the largest seating capacity is 1,300. So we don't have that same situation. And due respect, fellas, not all of our preachers are charismatic. You know that. They'll admit that too. And I'm one of them. They don't wear designer suits. These pants and this jacket don't match. And believe it or not, I've had this shirt for 7 years. They don't drive fancy cars. They don't have to be made up before they go into the pulpit, or have their hair slicked back and their big toothy smiles, with a beautiful wife on their arms. Again, sorry fellas. There are no cameras in our churches, and there are no book signings after the service. Now, I'm not criticizing the evangelists, not at all. But Catholic priests are there for the whole week. They're there after the sermon is over, after the word is preached, not just on Sunday mornings. They're in our schools. They are at our hospital beds at all hours of the day and night. They're listening to our sins in the confessional. They're counseling people who come to them really with tremendous burdens and tremendous needs. You may be among them. You won't believe sometimes what people bring to the priest with the expectation that it's going to be better when they walk out the door. And it most often is because of those priests. They're helping the unemployed. They're helping the poor. They take our worries and our problems on their shoulders, and they take them to heart. I've seen them do these things. I do them myself. Preaching the gospel doesn't cost a dime. Everything else, however, everything that our parishes need and try to do for you, our parishioners, carries a price. The diocese takes all those needs of parishes very, very seriously. Why? Because of the Lord's words. Whatever you do to the least of my sisters and brothers, you do for me. We see the Lord's face. We see the Lord's face in the poor. Today I spent the morning at El Centro in Trenton. And El Centro is a place that works with Hispanic and Latino families. And believe me, I met many of them today. They have nothing. They come here with nothing. And there's a group of about 18 in an English as a second language class. And they could barely speak, but when I walked in that door, they all stood. When I left, they all wanted selfies with me. But we see the Lord's face. We see it in the poor. We see it in our Catholic school children, in all of our children, those who are not in Catholic schools. Well, yesterday I was at Notre Dame High School in Lawrenceville. 600 young people gathered there for the Diocesan Youth Conference. It was unbelievable. The thing that was unbelievable, they couldn't believe that I referred to St. Paul and St. Barnabas as dudes. Got a chuckle out of them. We see the face of Christ in the people that we serve, the poor and those who are not poor, those who are lucky, those who are fortunate, those who are much blessed by God. We see the face of Christ in those who stand with us. We see the face of Christ in the priests who have stood with us in the heat of the day and now are in need of care. We see the face of Christ in the seminarians who are getting ready to take their place. All of us have heard it said. Some of us have said it. To be honest, all the Catholic Church wants is our money. You hear that all the time. My response to that is, give me a break. Give me a break. All the Catholic Church wants to do is to help us to get to heaven. And they help us by helping us get through life on this planet as it is. And as priests, and as ministers, as deacons, as others who serve in parishes throughout this diocese of ours, we face mountains when we try to do that. Tonight, my dear friends, you come here. You come here as people of faith, and you come to help us move those mountains. It can be done. It must be done, but not without your help, not without your sacrifice, not without your prayer. And so, as your bishop, I come before you and do what I do best, beg. I come to beg you to help our diocese continue to move mountains. You know, we won't see the sunrise on our future if we don't. And I thank you for being here. God bless you all.